Hello everyone, you're on the channel of the largest electric motor technology store in Russia and the CIS countries, C. Magiel Electro. My name is Grigory, and in this video you'll learn everything about budget electric no-name motorcycle replicas. It's going to get pretty intense, so try not to fall asleep. Let's go. First, let's figure out what exactly this is all about. Budget electric motorcycles. Here are their main characteristics. First, they don't have their own brand, so you can find the same model under different names. Second, they're all made using publicly available molds, frames, and plastics. Third, anyone who wants to makes them, and you can find dozens of factories producing what looks like the exact same model. Fourth, manufacturers can equip these electric motorcycles with anything the customer requests. Different batteries, motors, swing arms, colors, and more. Options and a whole bunch of other things. And fifth, of course, they cost less than other electric motorcycles. And to reinforce your understanding of the situation, let's go over the main differences between branded electric motorcycles and non-name ones. First, an original name and original design. A specific model of a branded electric motorcycle is produced by only one factory. Second, the brand stands behind the quality of the electric motorcycle with its reputation. Most often, branded electric motorcycles are launched directly onto the global market, especially the European market. The Chinese especially like to target this market, so they can't afford to mess up when it comes to quality. Third, the quality of the components in such electric motorcycles is better. Plastics, frames, batteries, motors, and other components. With no-name brands, there may only be minor overlaps, such as control panels, mirrors, brake discs, and so on. These don't require major investments or changes to the design, but they do give the product a finished look. Fourth is the consistency of the configurations. With branded electric motorcycles, you are usually offered at most one configuration to choose from. But thanks to this, it's much easier to write a detailed manual for it and keep all the necessary spare parts in stock at the warehouse. Fifth is the build quality. Of course, it's not always the case, but in the vast majority of branded electric bikes, the build quality will be better than in budget models. And sixth, of course, is the price. Budget-friendly electric bikes with the exact same technical specifications can often cost 30 to 50% less than the major branded bikes. Between no-name electric bikes, which are the budget segment, and branded electric bikes, which are the premium segment, there is a clear distinction in both quality and price. If we take all the electric motorcycles that we import from China costing up to 1.5 million and break them down by quality on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is total junk that should be burned before it catches fire itself, a score of 5 represents a decent electric bike, while a score of 10 is a top-tier high-quality electric bike that is absolutely worth every single ruble you spend on it. So, in terms of overall quality, budget electric bikes will typically fall between 1 and 5. While the premium segment electric bikes will occupy the higher range from 5 to 10. But right at the 5 mark, you will find well-made budget electric bikes overlapping with poorly made premium segment electric bikes. And the price boundary between budget electric bikes and the premium segment can be drawn at around 400,000 to 450,000 rubles at current exchange rates. This means that if your budget is lower, then you are 100% choosing from budget electric bikes. However, even if your budget is higher, you can still buy yourself a budget electric bike. Just equip it with more features. We'll talk about that a little later. As I already mentioned, budget electric bikes are made by anyone and everyone. The molds for their plastic parts and frames are widely available, which means that any factory that welds frames and casts plastic can produce them. And such a factory has more than one client ordering these parts, assembling electric or gasoline motorcycles in their own assembly shops. By the way, yes, the original design of these bikes was made for internal combustion engines, which is exactly why they look so much like their gasoline counterparts. And the most logical question that might come to mind now is, so what's the difference then? Who should you buy from if they're all making everything according to the same scheme from identical parts? But the difference is huge because all the factories that make budget electric bikes only do the final assembly. You could even call it screwdriver assembly. And all the parts, including the batteries, are purchased from manufacturing plants. That's why, with different manufacturers, the same models may only have the frame and plastic parts in common. And most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, the quality of budget electric bikes, even of the same model, can vary greatly. It all depends on the quality of the parts that the assembly shops purchase. And the quality of the assembly itself. Now let's take a look at the models of budget electric bikes. We will only consider the most popular models, starting with electric motorcycles with an upright seating position, Z1000. The design is quite old and hasn't been updated in a long time. It has the highest seat among the budget models. It's also one of the widest bikes due to the shape of the tank. You can also install a factory stunt cage on it, but unfortunately it's rather flimsy. On the plus side, it really looks like a Kawasaki, but on the downside, in my opinion, the foot pegs are inconveniently and excessively high, and it's uncomfortable to raise the handlebars to the maximum because the tank is very wide. The GTR is also an old model and its design hasn't been updated in a long time. On the plus side, it has a subcage. The stock subcage is not flimsy, unlike the Z, and is actually quite functional. It's also the most maneuverable model among budget bikes with an upright seating position. On the downside, the subcage can press against your knee if you're very tall. The Devil, also known as the Diavel, is the most popular version of a budget electric bike with an upright seating position. This bike has the longest wheelbase. On the plus side, it has the most comfortable seating position. Because of the frame size, you can fit a larger battery than in other models. Sliders come standard, and it has the most rugged appearance among budget electric bikes with an upright seating position. On the downside, probably just the largest turning radius among budget electric bikes. Next up are the models of budget electric sport bikes, more precisely not even sport bikes, but semi-sport bikes. The riding position is not shrimp-like, but more upright like the Ninja 300, a kind of urban sport. Ninja, the smallest in size, the most ancient design, hasn't been updated for a very long time. Over the last 6 years, the only thing he has changed is his headlights from halogen to LED. On the plus side, it really looks like a Kawasaki R3 restyling of 2023. One of the most popular sport bikes. It has undergone several redesigns of the plastics and lighting. One advantage is the plastic covers over the battery compartment, where on ICE bikes the engine sticks out. Pony Gallery Styling 2022. The most popular model among the sports. Wide fairings, the winglets are made to look like carbon fiber. By the way, you can also install a flat LED tail, which looks quite striking. And just like the R3D, it has a cover over the battery compartment where the engine is located on ICE bikes, DK. The newest model of electric sport bikes, 24 model year, beautiful headlights and perhaps the only bike that really looks like a Ducati. And finally, RR restyling model year 2025, the freshest design among budget electric bikes today. By the way, if you're choosing among budget electric sport bikes, you can really just go by the design because in terms of riding position, they're basically 99% the same. By the way, while I'm filming this video, a couple of days have already passed. During this time, I went back to the factory again to check the bikes for shipping, and there I saw a new model of electric sport bike. It looks like this. The design is quite interesting. Well, probably it's an acquired taste. It's very angular, but still, here's a new model that just appeared out of nowhere. Poof, and there it is. Of course, we've already added it to the website, and in terms of the quality of the plastic joints, this model might even be better than the Panigale. So, if you like the design, here's another interesting budget electric sport bike for you. Budget electric bikes can be painted absolutely any color since the painting is done not at the assembly shop, but at the factory where the plastic is molded. The palette choice is unlimited. The only question is how much they'll charge you for it and whether the Chinese will match the exact color and shade you picked for yourself. There are 3 basic paint application options for budget electric bikes. The first is gloss. Everything is fine with it, just regular gloss. I recommend choosing this option when picking out a budget electric bike. The second is matte paint, and when it comes to Chinese matte paint, all I have are swear words. I'm not joking. Matte paint on budget electric bikes can be wiped off with an ordinary cloth. We strongly discourage all our customers from choosing matte finishes. And third, you have to remember that chrome is definitely an acquired taste for most riders. Before we move on to the power unit, let me explain in detail right now why in this video you won't see or hear anything about hub motors.
All around me a familiar face.
Yes, you can get a budget electric bike with a hub motor, but I strongly advise against doing so. If for some reason you haven't yet watched the video on our YouTube channel about the difference between a mid-drive motor and a hub motor, here's a brief overview for you. The main two reasons not to choose a hub motor. First, a hub motor is a significant and heavy unsprung mass that will strike the ground with the force of a heavy sledgehammer. Every single time you ride over a bump or a speed bump, it can gradually compromise and damage your suspension, and your lower back much faster too. Second, a hub motor acts as a substantial and incredibly heavy flywheel that, while moving, gradually accumulates a vast amount of kinetic energy and constantly tries to maintain its own stability in space. This means that leaning an e-bike into a sharp turn when it has a hub motor is not just extremely inconvenient and difficult, it's actually quite unsafe for the rider. At the same time, the cost of an e-bike with a central motor and with a hub motor will be about the same. That's exactly why we're not discussing hub motors today. They can only perform sufficiently when they're small and low-powered, like for example on electric scooters. Now that we've settled on the type of motor, let's go over the swing arms that these motors will be used with. Almost all budget e-bike models can be fitted with several different variations of swing arms. We'll only talk about the most popular ones. Let's go from the most budget-friendly, the cheapest, to the most expensive. The first is the steel double-sided swing arm. The most budget-friendly swing arm used to be just a simple square shape, but now it's become more streamlined and attractive. On this type of swing arm, you can install either a belt or chain drive, and the motor is located inside the bike's frame. The second swing arm is a double-sided aluminum one. Basically, it's the same as the steel one, just looks a bit better. The only thing is, if you decide to install a belt drive on this kind of swing arm, they'll need to make a small cut in it for you. As they say, saving should be economical. The third option is a double-sided steel swing arm with the motor inside the swing arm. You can install either a belt or chain drive, but we stopped using this type of swing arm because it had too many quality issues. I won't say much about it, just know that this type exists, but you shouldn't choose it. The fourth swing arm is a cantilever type with the motor inside the swing arm itself and a belt drive. It looks pretty good, but there are only two drawbacks. The first is a huge, just massive pulley on the rear wheel, and the second is a small space for the shock absorber. They use a short shock, so the suspension ends up being quite stiff. That's what you get with it. The fifth swing arm is a cantilever aluminum one. The motor is located inside the motorcycle's frame, and a chain drive is used. The quality is superb, and so is the appearance. I highly recommend it. By the way, regarding swing arms for budget electric bikes, there's also this option, but we don't offer it or list it on the website because it's designed for a 10 kilowatt motor. A 10 kilowatt motor on a budget electric sport bike, well, that's just complete nonsense because the price ends up being like a premium segment, but the quality is still that of a budget electric bike. So this option does exist, and if someone needs it for a custom build, it can be ordered as well. But we definitely won't be offering this in our ready-made budget electric bikes. As for motor power, there are also various options, which depend on which swing arm you install. For example, on the most budget-friendly swing arm, a regular steel double-sided one. You can install 3 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts with water cooling, and 8 kilowatts motors. On the regular aluminum double-sided swing arm, you can also install all 4 of these motor options. For the cantilever swing arm option with a belt, when the motor is located inside the housing, you can install either a 3 kilowatt motor or a 5 kilowatt motor. If someone tells you that you can install an 8 kilowatt motor there, they are most likely trying to deceive you. On the cantilever aluminum swing arm, with a chain you can also install all motor options because these motors with this swing arm are mounted inside the motorcycle frame. If we're talking about the swing arm I mentioned last, the one where the motor is located in the swing arm itself with a chain drive and a cantilever design, you can only install a 10 kilowatt motor in it. There are currently no other options available for that setup. Let's go over the most popular electric motors by power. Take a close look at them, at their appearance, their size, and their maximum speed. Because sellers often try to pass off a motor as a more powerful version, for example there. A 3 kilowatt motor might be sold as a 5 kilowatt one, and a 5 kilowatt motor might be sold as an 8 kilowatt one. Basically, people do whatever they can get away with. It's the same story with maximum speed. In principle, it's limited by the motor's RPM. But for some reason, some sellers try to exaggerate it. The very first option available is a 3 kilowatt capacity electric motor with a gearbox manufactured by the QS company. The gearbox is located at the end of the motor. The maximum speed of this motor is between 100 and 120 kilometers per hour, depending on the settings, on a 17-inch wheel. Next is a 4 kilowatt gearless motor. You don't really need to worry much about it because it's only used in the swing arm. This type, which we no longer use and don't recommend to anyone, it's very rarely installed in other motors, so you can just ignore it. But if you're curious, its top speed is between 110 and 130 kilometers per hour, again with a 17-inch wheel. This is what a 5 kilowatt geared motor looks like. Its top speed is between 120 and 135 kilometers per hour, again with a 17-inch wheel. By the way, the 5 kilowatt motor is also available on budget electric bikes with water cooling, but we'll talk about that a bit later. And this is what an 8 kilowatt electric motor looks like gearless. When it is installed on a budget electric motorcycle with a 17-inch wheel, its top speed can range from 150 to 170 kilometers per hour. By the way, most often, electric motors on budget electric bikes use ready-made models from two well-known brands in China, and not just in China. The first is Chuangshun, also known as Quanshun, as it is called in Russian transcription. This is QS motor. And the second is Yuma motor. We've covered the motors, now let's talk about the drive system. On budget electric motorcycles, you'll most often be choosing between a chain and a belt. In fact, there's no need to dwell on this too much because, as I mentioned earlier, on some swing arms you only have a chain and on others only a belt. But if for some reason this really concerns you and you do have a choice between a chain and a belt on the swing arm you want to install on your electric motorcycle, here's a brief summary of the pros and cons. Advantages of the chain. First, strength and reliability. Second, it is cheaper than a belt. Third, it is easy to repair and replace. And fourth, it has lower efficiency losses. Advantages of the belt drive. First, there's no chain noise, though that's a debatable benefit because for me, the sound of the chain, I actually like it on e-bikes. Second, a belt doesn't require technical inspection. If it wears out, you just replace it. Third, the belt is cleaner in use, it doesn't collect dirt and doesn't splatter oil everywhere. And fourth, the belt runs more smoothly. It transmits torque smoothly, unlike a chain, and you won't have that jerky start, even if you twist the throttle all the way from a standstill. Budget electric bikes often rely on off-the-shelf solutions, including controllers, because small assembly workshops simply can't afford to develop their own powertrain. In recent years, two main brands of high-performance controllers have been used in budget electric bikes. These are Vatel and Fardriver. There are some manufacturers of budget electric bikes who install controllers from brands no one has ever heard of, and if they break, you can't even find software for them. It's basically a disposable part that you'll have to replace entirely. The competition in assembling budget electric bikes is enormous, and manufacturers, that is, assemblers, very often buy the cheapest possible parts in order to attract customers with low prices. And that means it's very easy to come across explosive batteries in budget electric bikes made from who knows what. I won't try to scare you too much, I'll just tell you about two cases from our 7 years of experience. The first one involved Dongma Flash electric motorcycles. This was 5 years ago. Dongma, you could say, is a legendary company that produces budget electric bikes. Right now they're tied up in lawsuits, it's a complete disaster, I don't even know how they're still afloat. By the way, the founder of Dongma is Alan Wong, who is also the founder of Allrenda. I'm not hinting at anything for those who want to buy Allrenda. Alright, but that's not what we're talking about right now. When we got our first bikes, I recall 3 electric motorcycles, about 5 years ago. Of course, none of them worked. Some of them had wheels that would spin in the opposite direction. Some just wouldn't turn on at all. So when we started taking them apart, we got to the batteries. After we had carefully opened up the outer casing of the battery pack, we were quite surprised to discover the remarkable fact that this massive battery was actually constructed using 50 to 60% recycled lithium-ion cells, which had been salvaged from various old electric cars found at a local automotive scrapyard facility. And the rest of the space was just stuffed with foam rubber so that these cells wouldn't bounce around inside the case. In the end, everything turned out fine with those bikes. Over the course of several years, we completely rebuilt them, replaced all the controllers, the power electronics, the motors, and the batteries. Basically, yes, only the plastic and the frame were left from Dongma. The second case is with a company called Longastar, a manufacturer of electric bikes. We worked with them for many years, I think about 4 or 5 years. We collaborated with them. We sold literally hundreds of electric motorcycles from that factory. And with one of the batches, in the summer, we made a purchase of, I think, 45 motorcycles. And the representatives, the owners of the factory, decided to save money and, without our knowledge or warning, made a purchase. Batteries from a new supplier that were significantly less expensive. As a direct result, we had several battery fires, suffered substantial financial losses, had a lot of motorcycles returned, and incurred extraordinarily high costs for reworking the batteries, repairing them, and manufacturing entirely new replacements. So we no longer work with that factory. And the funniest thing is that during all of this, the factory just completely washed their hands of the mess because it was much easier for them to lose us as a partner, even though we had worked together for a good number of years, than to cover the huge losses that resulted from buying those crappy, low-quality batteries. By the way, here's an interesting nuance about the Chinese mentality. If a client asks for the lowest possible price, it's not shameful for a Chinese supplier to sell them a product that's been cobbled together from whatever's at hand. Because the client is the one asking for it cheap, and whatever he imagines that he can get a product of decent quality for that price is his own problem. The Chinese don't concern themselves with that. After the second incident, we set up our own battery production facility in China under our control. And we no longer allow manufacturers of budget electric bikes to put in batteries bought who knows where. The main differences of our batteries. First, only new grade A or B cells are used. Second, we mainly use NCM prismatic cells from top brands like Catel with 1,500 to 2,000 cycles. Third, all cells undergo inspection and rejection of defective ones. Fourth, we use proven BMS with active balancers. Fifth, and we prepare an impact-resistant case. And sixth, we provide complete waterproofing and fill the entire battery interior with compound. And the funniest thing is that such a battery actually doesn't cost much more than that explosive crap that's usually installed in budget electric bikes, regarding the lifespan of lithium batteries. If we take the cheapest crap, a poorly assembled battery, it might die within a year. Unfortunately, such cases have happened. But if it's made properly, even with cheap chemistry, you can expect about 700 charge-discharge cycles on average. As I mentioned earlier, the batteries we make ourselves last from 1.5 to 2,000 cycles. By the way, we also sell individual batteries, so if for some unknown reason you bought a budget electric bike, not from us, then besides our disapproval, we can also offer you a quality battery. Sometimes, even on budget electric bikes, you can find models with quick-release batteries. Someone in China made a mold for an R3 motorcycle with an opening plastic tank. If you buy one of these, the advantage is that you get quick-release batteries, but there are more drawbacks here. First of all, the battery capacity is limited. There's a maximum of 60 or 80 amp hours. You simply can't fit more in there because there's not enough space to remove the battery, so 80 amp hours is the maximum. Second, you'll constantly have a creaking, wobbly plastic tank. It's much better to install a metal one. It looks better and is more pleasant to use. This is a mold for a budget electric bike, so no one is going to refine it to a proper state with an opening tank, like it's done on the Litua or, for example, on the TJ electric bike. So you'll always have a creaking, wobbly tank. Third, the battery mounting system is poorly designed. The battery itself is mounted inside in a way that's frankly anyone's guess. Each assembler does it however they can. So don't expect anything reasonable when it comes to the battery mounting or quick release system on a budget electric bike. And fourth, the heavy batteries used in these electric bikes are often just quite inconvenient to carry, because they simply use a regular, basic metal box with a small handle. But that's just not acceptable at all. The bike was never originally designed to have quick release batteries, so everything there will be makeshift and clumsy. By the way, higher-end electric bikes with quick-release batteries usually either have a small range or a split battery, for example, divided into two parallel blocks. Because if you make the battery removable, not everyone will be able to take it out. For example, a 72-volt, 93 amp-hour battery weighs about 60 kilograms. Now imagine pulling it out of the electric motorcycle and, with one hand, lifting it over the tank up to your face level. We've established that quick-release batteries on budget electric bikes are nonsense. Now let me immediately answer a subscriber question about winter storage and removing the battery. There are two options here. If you have a warm space like a garage or covered parking, of course, it's much easier to just drive your electric motorcycle in there and leave it. The main thing is to make sure the battery doesn't drop below 40% charge. That is, keep it in the range of 40 to 80%. That's really optimal. If you don't have that option, you can remove it. You can remove the battery from a budget electric motorcycle, even though it's not quick release. You can still take it out. On some models, you'll have to remove the side plastic for this. On some, in addition to this, you'll also have to remove the metal tank on top. This will take about an hour, depending on which model you have. Then you can cover the bike with a cover and leave it outside anywhere. Without heating, it doesn't matter. And the battery itself, of course, bring it inside to a warm room and store it there all winter. There is a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about range on the internet. If you want to calculate the real range, we actually have a calculation formula in a separate video on YouTube. I'll attach the link in the description regarding our website, what is listed there and how it's presented. The maximum range indicated on our website is in eco mode, not exceeding 60 kilometers per hour in city driving. If you floor it on the highway or accelerate from a traffic light in maximum mode, pushing the bike to its limits, just squeezing out everything, then you can safely divide the maximum range by 1.5, or in some cases, even by 2. Of course, the range will also be affected by the rider's weight, whether you have a passenger, the incline of the roads where you use it, and the outside temperature. Chargers for budget electric bikes usually come with a power rating from 5 to 25 amperes. There are, of course, 45 amp chargers, but not every outlet can handle them. To determine the charging speed of your battery, you need to divide your battery's ampere hours by the amperage of your charger. For example, if you have an 80 ampere hour battery and a 10 amp charger. You divide 80 by 10 and get 8. This means that in 8 hours your battery will charge from 0 to 100%. A word of warning: if your budget e-bike has a generic factory battery from an unknown manufacturer, you shouldn't try to charge it with a high-speed powerful charger faster than in 4 hours. It's extremely unsafe. Our batteries, manufactured specifically under our own brand, are fully capable of completing a charge in just 1 hour. That's because they use higher quality, adequate high current power cells of a premium high grade. You definitely won't find that in a typical battery from who knows where, so don't take the risk. A charger can be either external or built-in. If it's external, it's simply outside the bike. There's a charger, a little box that you plug into an outlet, connect to the bike, and charge it. If you have a built-in charger, it's located inside the motorcycle's body, most often somewhere near the tank. If you have a built-in charger, there are two types of connectors. The first option, under the rear seat or in the center of the electric motorcycle, there will simply be a cord for the outlet. So you open the seat, take out the cord, plug it in, and start charging. The advantage of this type of connector is that you don't need to carry any extra cables with you. You just open the seat, take out the cord, plug it into the outlet, and charge. The downside is that you'll constantly have to wind and unwind the cable so that it fits under the seat. The second option is a Type 2 connector. Its advantage is that it looks nice and is symbolically located in the neck of the tank. The downside is that you have to carry an extra cable with you, which on one end connects to the Type 2 port in the tank, and on the other end plugs into an outlet. But Type 2 on budget electric bikes is not fast charging from an electric car charging station. Even though from the outside, can you plug it in? Type 2. Inside, there is still a small 10 to 15 watt charger with an amp rating for 220 volts. Its charging speed is limited not by the external current, but by the charger itself. If you connect it to an electric car charging station, it won't charge any faster because of that. For real fast charging, a converter is installed that can handle high currents. It takes up a lot of space and is expensive. That is why you won't see this in cheaper budget electric bikes. And before we move on to additional options, I want to say that I strongly advise against buying one. A budget electric bike with a motor more powerful than 3 kilowatts and a battery over 100 amp hours. Let me explain. If you buy a budget electric bike in its maximum configuration, you still get a low-quality motorcycle, but with insane specs. And its price will be comparable to premium quality electric bikes. If your budget is enough for a premium quality electric motorcycle, it's better to buy the premium one. Yes, maybe with lower specs, but the quality will be significantly better. But if you absolutely need your bike to go 150 kilometers per hour and you can't afford a higher-end bike, please don't do it. Save up. Don't buy a budget electric bike with such a powerful motor. I hope I've convinced at least someone. Now, let's move on to the extra options. What can you add to a budget electric bike, and why might you need it? At the moment, motor cooling systems are only installed on 5 kilowatt engines. So, if for some reason you have chosen a 5 kilowatt electric motor and plan to use your motorcycle to its absolute fullest potential, taking off hard at every single traffic light, flooring it all the way to the max, and maintaining top speed over very long distances. And on top of that, if you happen to be riding in a very hilly area, then yes, you might definitely need water cooling. But for the average user, most likely, you absolutely don't need it. Tires on budget electric bikes can be either plastic or regular ones. The proper ones have an E4 stamp. This is a European certification, which means the tires have passed quality checks. I strongly recommend not skimping on this because the difference in road grip between cheap tires and E4 tires is simply enormous. And this, first and foremost, is your safety. The width of the rear wheel on a budget electric bike ranges from 140 to 220 millimeters. This only affects the appearance because the contact patch of the rear wheel will be the same anyway. And you can put wheels of different widths on different Mantics, so when ordering, just clarify this with the manager. The front brake discs can be either floating or regular. Regular ones are simply attached directly to the wheel hub. Floating ones have two rings, an inner and an outer. The outer ring interacts with the brake calipers, while the inner ring is attached to the hub. They are connected to each other by bushings and have a slight movement relative to each other in the plane. Thanks to this, floating brake discs distribute braking force evenly to both pads. They overheat less and are much less likely to warp, and they will provide better braking. I recommend them. Front brake calipers. There are these regular black ones and there are supposedly reinforced silver ones. Yes, they look different visually, but in 7 years of using various budget electric bikes, I haven't noticed any difference. And there's another interesting nuance here, that budget electric bikes are equipped with 2 front brake discs. Although, given the engine power and the weight of the bike itself, even one would be more than enough here. So you really don't even need to worry about the front calipers because in any case, there are more than enough of them here. Usually entry-level budget motorcycles have a single piston caliper at the rear, but some enthusiasts even offer customized options exactly like this one. Let me explain why this is completely impractical and total nonsense. When you brake on a motorcycle, whether it's electric or gas-powered, it doesn't matter. The motorcycle tilts forward. At that very specific moment, the front wheel has significantly more grip with the road surface than the rear wheel. Furthermore, this specialized 3-caliper contraption can quite easily lock up your rear wheel completely. That's a direct path to skidding and an accident. BrakeMaster cylinders on budget electric bikes also come in several options to choose from. For example, there are different types of reservoirs for brake fluid. They can be teardrop-shaped and transparent, they can be square and opaque, or they can look like this. Here are these small external cylinders. By the way, these work the worst, so if you have a choice, pick any of the others. They're fine. And the brake levers on these master cylinders also come in different types. There are standard ones, folding ones, or ones with adjustment. I recommend getting the adjustable ones because you can conveniently set them up for fingers of any length. I probably wouldn't recommend the folding ones because yes, during a bike fold, they won't get damaged since they bend away. Well, what do you mean damaged? They'll get worn down, but they won't break off. But at the same time, you're still ruining the whole bike lever, so it's probably just easier not to drop it. And there's another downside to these folding levers. It's that they're not always particularly convenient because some riders accidentally hit them while they are riding and fold them by mistake. So the best option for most people is just to use adjustable brake levers instead. The rear shock absorber on budget electric bikes. Sometimes it's a basic one without adjustment, sometimes it has spring adjustment, and sometimes it comes like this with a reservoir, which by the way is usually fake. You really don't need to worry about it. On budget electric bikes, they'll all work. They are essentially quite similar. You can just get a shock with spring adjustment, and that will be perfectly adequate for your specific needs. If you want something more, then you'll most likely have to look for suitable higher grade, higher quality parts that perfectly fit your requirements. Budget electric bike. Or just get a non-budget electric bike where the quality parts come included right from the start. The front fork on a motorcycle can be either conventional or inverted. The inverted type has nothing but advantages. It resists twisting and bending, the suspension feels better, handling is more stable, it's resistant to overheating, and it's more durable. The only downside, of course, is the cost. It's an extra option that I strongly recommend getting on any motorcycle, whether it's gasoline or electric. There are a lot of different display options on budget electric bikes. Older ones, for example, are terribly inaccurate when it comes to speed and can't be calibrated. Different electric bikes of different models use different displays, but we won't go through all of them right now. I'll highlight only the TFT display, which appeared not so long ago. Again, it's available from different manufacturers in various versions and designs. Its main features are that it can be calibrated and its interface can be customized. You can connect your phone to it and play music, or mirror your phone's screen on the display, for example, to use navigation. And if you install new control switches on the electric bike, which I'll talk about a bit later, you can control the display without taking your hands off the handlebars. Overall, it's a very useful thing. I highly recommend it. If you don't know, these are speakers designed to look like exhaust pipes, which respond to twisting the throttle and produce a sound that imitates the operation of an internal combustion engine. I do not recommend them. If you're installing it for passive safety, like so people around can hear the sound, it's all nonsense. Pedestrians can already hear you at low speeds, and in city traffic during the summer motorcycle season, everyone is driving with the AC on and usually with music playing. You can only hear a motorcycle from inside a car if it has a straight pipe exhaust and is roaring 3 blocks away. Even with gasoline motorcycles, car drivers usually only hear them after the bike has already passed them. From personal experience, I've ridden electric bikes for 6 seasons, and not a single accident or dangerous situation happened because I couldn't be heard. Even though I rode different models, some with a gearbox, some without, with chain drive and belt drive, they all sound different, just so you know. For example, the belt drive is practically silent, and if you suddenly want to install a fake exhaust for some other reason and passive safety isn't your concern, then go right ahead, more power to you. Fortunately, even cheap sound imitation systems these days don't sound as bad as they did 5 years ago. The extra rear fender on a budget electric bike serves 2 main purposes. The first purpose is to protect your back from splashes coming off the rear wheel, and it does this about 80% effectively. The second purpose is to allow you to move the turn signals from the tail of your electric motorcycle to the rear fender. That way, you can completely remove the tail, and the bike will look much more impressive. Unfortunately, the rear add-on fender can't be installed on all swing arms, so be sure to check with the manager. But if you do choose a swing arm that allows for its installation, then I strongly recommend it. There are currently a great many different controllers available for budget electric bikes. The best option you can install is these controllers with blue backlighting. The advantage is that you can connect them to a TFT display. It has top-notch quality and the best visuals, plus a convenient button for shifting gears and reverse. Now, we basically order these controllers for all budget electric bikes. If you happen to get a bike with different controllers, at least make sure that the forward and reverse switch is located on the right handlebar under your thumb. Sometimes the gear switch is installed on the left as a ring on the handle, like on scooters. It's inconvenient because you'll constantly be hitting it during sudden braking or rapid acceleration. It's better to forget about ABS on budget electric bikes. It still won't work properly no matter what the sellers try to tell you. Anyone who has ridden a gasoline or electric motorcycle with a properly functioning ABS will realize this after their first hard braking on a budget electric bike. If you need a properly working ABS, then budget electric bikes are not for you. You need to look at the premium segment. TCS, also known as traction control. Not all budget electric bikes have it. Ours, for example, do have it. For those who don't know what this feature is, it's designed to prevent your bike from skidding on roads with poor traction. This function is implemented using the controller. The controller monitors the rotation of the motor. And if the motor starts spinning up too quickly, it means the rear wheel has lost traction with the road, and it needs to be slowed down. This feature is not available on all budget electric bikes. Not all manufacturers of budget electric bikes want to bother with it. So pay attention to this when making a purchase. But if you buy from Simargil Electro, of course, you'll have this feature. Cruise control is when you press a button and the bike locks in your current speed and maintains it until you press the throttle again or one of the brake levers. It's the same as with TCS. Not all budget electric bikes have it. At Simargil Electro, of course, it is included. Here's some shocking content. They installed cruise control on the budget Devil model, and they installed it without any speed restrictions. And right now I'm going at 5 to 6 kilometers per hour. Just so you understand, usually on bikes that have cruise control, it only activates at a minimum of 20 kilometers per hour. That's really the bare minimum. Usually it's even from 30 kilometers per hour. Here, even the non-adaptive cruise control locks the speed at 5 kilometers per hour, which is very low. Normally the threshold is 30 kilometers per hour. By the way, non-adaptive cruise control means that to change the speed at which the cruise control is set, you need to turn off the cruise, accelerate or decelerate to the desired speed, and then activate cruise control again. Adaptive cruise control is available on more expensive models. When the throttle lock function is enabled on the kickstand, a small device is installed on the kickstand. When the kickstand is down, it presses the device and sends a signal to the controller that you cannot use the throttle or supply power to the motor at this time. This function is very convenient if you constantly forget to turn off the electric motorcycle or put it in park when you are standing still. After all, the electric motorcycle is silent, and the only way to tell it's running while stopped is by looking at its display or the headlights if they're on. I still remember an incident when one of our first customers, about 7 years ago, was showing his friends his new electric motorcycle near the garage. And one of his friends decided to twist the throttle. At that time, there was no throttle lock function when the kickstand was down. So in the end, it meant repairing the fence and replacing the plastic on the motorcycle. In short, this add-on is really worth it. I highly recommend always installing it, especially since it costs next to nothing. The only nuance is with Devil electric bikes, they don't have this function because they have a somewhat unique frame design and kickstand mount, but on other models, it is available. A USB port is a very useful thing for charging your devices while riding. On the GTR and Panigale models, as far as I remember, it's included as standard. On other models, it's inexpensive, so I highly recommend getting it because it's cheap and very useful. Budget electric bike mirrors vary, but even basic ones work well. Some feature integrated turn signal repeaters for street and sport bikes. There are also bar-end mirrors for street bikes. It's personal preference. If you like them, get them. The only thing you definitely shouldn't get are two types of mirrors for sport bikes. The first are flat, rectangular ones, you can't see anything in them at all. The second are foldable wing-like mirrors made to look like carbon fiber. They're quite thin, and when unfolded, the wind shakes them so much that it's simply impossible for your eyes to focus on them. Next are questions from our subscribers that couldn't be categorized under any specific part or accessory for the electric bike. Is it possible to upgrade a budget electric bike? What and how can you improve? you can upgrade everything. It's like a construction set. As for the motor, you can only replace it if it's in the swing arm, replace it together with the swing arm. The motor mount, in the frame, it's fixed. And you can't install a different motor there without welding the frame. You can fit batteries into almost any bike as long as the frame size allows it. And as for accessories, most of them can be installed on a finished bike either at our service center or by yourself. How and where can you find consumables for budget electric bikes? The best way to do this, of course, is through the seller from whom you bought your budget electric bike, because different factories purchase different parts, use different consumables, and they can vary from store to store, from factory to factory. But if you have completely lost contact with the seller from whom you bought your budget electric bike, you can find all the parts on AliExpress. The only thing is, you'll have to put in some effort because you'll need to figure it out visually. What fits and what doesn't. Any motorcycle service center can handle maintenance of the mechanical parts. The electrical part doesn't require maintenance, it only needs to be repaired if it breaks. Most often, modular replacement is required, for example, a new controller, a new motor, or a new battery. And how far you are from the nearest service center will only affect the cost of delivering parts to you. So, why buy a budget electric bike at all? A budget electric bike is suitable for you if, firstly, your budget doesn't allow you to get a bike from a higher segment, and secondly, if you choose a budget electric bike with an appropriate configuration, a 3 kilowatt motor and a battery no larger than 100 ampere hours. But if you need a more powerful bike, it's better to save up for a premium segment model. If your budget allows you to get a premium segment bike, even if it's with lower specs and those specs suit you, it's better to do that, rather than buying a budget electric bike but with more powerful specs. Where should you buy a budget electric bike? What's the difference, really, in who you buy it from? The first option is to buy directly, from some factory, for example. The advantage is that it will definitely be cheaper than buying through a store. But the downsides are that there's no warranty if something goes wrong, no certainty that you'll get exactly the configuration you ordered, and the saddest part is that it's unclear what's actually inside the battery that comes with your electric bike. And the second option is to buy from C-Magel Electro. I think you know which option I would recommend to you. If you made it to the end of this video, be sure to give it a like. Let's see how many people survived. If you still have questions, write them in the comments. This was Grigory. See you in the next videos.